If there's anything that's been consistent this generation, it's been the amount of remasters we've received across the board. And that's a good thing. See, it allows both a new generation of gamers to experience a sometimes enhanced version with quality of life updates, and retro gamers like me who didn't get a chance to play the game growing up, since I was starting high school and track DDR and Resident Evil kind of consumed my life for those years. I also quickly learned that sports were never for me. Fast forward 23 years. Oh, my back! And Capcom's been on a tear with ports and remasters, which is par for the course from every generation that they're a part of, but we've gotten some unexpected gems this year alone with Capcom Fighting Collection 2, Breath of Fire 4 through GOG's preservation program, and most recently with Onimusha 2 Remastered. I personally didn't think we'd see the day after Onimusha Warlords dropped in 2020 and we heard nothing afterwards. I actually went and bought a copy of 2 and 3 a couple years ago because I'd given up all hope for a continuation of them remastering this series. And here I am 2 years after buying those 2 copies and one failed attempt at finishing Samurai's Destiny on my PS2, and it's high time I redeemed myself. With slightly improved controls, a solid update on visuals, and the inclusion of an all-new gallery and mini-games, Onimusha 2 proves that it deserves to be in the lineup of Capcom classics of the Gen 6 era of consoles. What's going on, crew? I know it's been a while since I've done one of these, but you've been working all day, and now it's after work. I'm Joe, and this is my review for Onimusha 2 Samurai's Destiny. I'm going to start off this review a little bit different, and by that I mean we're totally not getting into the review right away, so if you want to skip to any of the timestamps, please go check them down in the description below, or you can kind of hover around and select where you feel like starting. But I wanted to do a little dive into some of the gaming history of Onimusha 2 with the director, specifically Motohide Eshido. And I'm going to butcher that name so much, and I apologize. I'm trying my best here. Now, before Capcom asked Eshido-san to come back and direct a remaster to Samurai's Destiny, let's rewind back to the era of arcade fighting games. He started off as a programmer at Capcom, where he would be responsible for bringing Guile to life in-game. How wild is that? Your first project is working on what would eventually become one of the most influential fighting games in gaming today. Talk about making a mark first try. Now, I tried to find some information between Street Fighter 2 all the way up until the year 2000, where he would eventually become a game designer, but there really wasn't anything until post Onimusha that I could find, which we'll get into that later on. But I just wanted to let y'all know, like, the huge gap that's here and me skipping over to the year 2000 is only because I really couldn't find anything, and I can only assume that the games he was working on was probably maybe mostly Street Fighter at that point, because that was the hottest thing, the arcade scene of the 90s and whatnot. And like I said, it wouldn't be until the year 2000, or as Gen Alpha dubs it, the Y2K era. I'm old, I know. Where Eshido-san would become a game designer, working on Onimusha Warlords, a Resident Evil meets Devil May Cry mix-up, although we wouldn't see the dual pistol sword wielding half demon, half human until about a few months later. Wait a minute, what's going on here? So fun fact, only because I randomly came across this while I was taking a shower and listening to Matt McMuscles, but Resident Evil 1.5, some of the stuff from there was actually brought over to Onimusha as a project, because Onimusha Warlords was originally supposed to be a PlayStation 1 project. I never knew that. I knew there was some correlation there, but I thought it was in relation to RE4 alongside Devil May Cry, because I know that split off into a few different projects. And there you go, a little bit of tidbit. Also, I'll leave that Matt McMuscles video down in the comments below, or sorry, in the description below. But if I do forget to put that in, someone remind me and I'll put that in there. After Warlords released and 2 million copies sold worldwide, it was clear as Nobunaga's pierced neckmeat that Capcom would be quick to work on a sequel to the supernatural war times of the Sengoku period in Japan. It was here where Eshido-san would sit in the director's chair and take the lead on Onimusha 2 Samurai's Destiny. As of 2008, the sequel would move on to sell just under 2 million copies, which I'm sure with this remaster will add more to that by the time it's all said and done. One of the more notable takes on Onimusha 2 was its weak sales in Europe, which is why we got the direction in the story that was taken during Onimusha 3, but that's a story for another time. Motohide Eshido would then move on to various projects such as producer across the Devil May Cry series, more notably DMC, Okamiden, and the Phoenix Wright series. He would also co-direct 2002's Valkyrie Elysium from Square Enix alongside Takahiro Kondo. Fast forwarding from Onimusha 2's 2002 release, and Eshido-san is once again back in the director's seat on a remastered project I once again never thought would happen after Warlords Remastered dropped in 2020. Now we get to the fun nitty-gritty of my thoughts of this remaster, but if you enjoyed up until this point, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button for more retro content and all of my nonsensical live streams here and on Twitch. Now back to the review. Onimusha 2 Remastered comes with quite a number of new features and add-on content compared to its original release. There's 2 new difficulty modes in Easy and Hell mode. Hell mode is basically one shot and you're dead. So this is meant for the hardest of hardcore Oni fans and those who want the bragging rights. There's also a feature built in where if you're stuck in an area and you keep getting a game over, you'll be asked if you like to bump the difficulty down. A little disrespectful to my pride, but I'll take it. There's special outfits you can select from the main menu for Jubei and UwU. There's also the addition of several mini games, the Man in Black, where you have to collect a bunch of film rolls, but the catch is your only weapon is being a sponge stick. So you can only knock back enemies as you search for the film all around on a countdown before it's game over. And once that's done, you're gone. Team Oni allows you to play and swap between all the main party members of Onimusha 2. It's in a gauntlet style series of battles. However, the catch is your health is constantly depleting, so you're having to keep an eye on your health, your equipment as you gain new weapons, and swapping party members at a moment's notice to try to keep everybody alive as long as you can. I personally had fun with this one. I don't see myself going back to all these mini games, but I had a nice time with it. I like gauntlet style stuff, so horde mode things and whatnot. So this particularly like itched a part of my brain that was just like, I'm locked in for a little bit here. The final game is for puzzle enthusiasts called Puzzle Phantom Realm, and I'm not gonna lie, I tapped out after the 3rd puzzle of the 1st level for this very reason. Roll the clip.
Bro, my brain meets its braining out here. Wait, huh? I solved the puzzle. Why did it quit? Huh? Right? Just so I know I'm not going crazy and y'all can see. Maybe 3rd time's the charm. Maybe 1, right? 2, 3.
And that's all I'm gonna say about it. Enjoy it. There's also a built-in soundtrack of 43 songs and a number of galleries, including sketches from Keita Amamiya. I only had to say that twice, and I'm pretty sure I still butchered that. Anyway, there's Capcom concept art and artwork of all special outfits in the game across the characters. In addition to the extra goodies, autosave has been implemented across every door transition. You can skip all the cutscenes from the start, and for my retro enthusiasts, you can swap the aspect ratio from 16:9 to 4:3, both of which look good. And the 16:9 has what you've been seeing throughout this entire video so far. Amongst the many quality of life updates is the in-game quick change system for your weapons, where you hold the L2 trigger and move around with the D-pad to select your choice of weapon. Now I'll tell you personally, for me, because I come from like the old school Resident Evil background, the classic ones, I play them all. Resident Evil is probably my favorite Capcom series out of everything going on, right? But I'm so used to menu swapping so much, and sorry I hit the mic there, but I'm so used to menu swapping so much that the in-game quick thing, first off, I did not pay attention early on, and I did not figure it out until later into the game than I should have. But by the time we got there, I was so used to weapon swapping through the menu itself, I just kept going the rest of the game like that. Like I tried, but I was just like, I think the moments of like you're in a battle and there's like 4 or 5 enemies against you, and you do that like panic swapping thing and like your brain just doesn't know what buttons it needs to push. I'm just going into the menu and switching out real quick. It's preference at that point, right? It's a neat feature to have, but if you're used to the old school way, then you're probably going to stick to just menu swapping at the end of the day. The biggest change in how story progression and world building works in Onimusha 2 is the use of the hub world, which you'll be revisiting for a good chunk of the game. If there's anything I can recommend, it's making sure that as soon as the shop is unlocked, buy up all the gifts in the shop before moving on to any quests, so the items can refresh properly after each journey you venture off into. It'll require some gold grinding early on in game, but it'll be worth it in the long run, especially with the different sequence of events the game offers depending on which friendship across the 4 characters you choose to give said gifts to. This will allow them to join in at certain points of each chapter and help you out in battling regular enemies or even bosses. I will say it's definitely not as clear as the characters themselves make gifting out to be, so if you want to look up a gift giving system guide anywhere, I don't even blame you, because it's actually a little more convoluted in getting certain characters to like you more than others. The gift giving has no bearing on the actual ending of the game, but you are rewarded with particular cutscenes throughout, and especially in the later half of the game. Speaking of characters, let's get through this amazing band of heroes. Jubei Yagyu, our main protagonist and in-story lore, is the founder of the Yagyu Shinkage Ryu, which translates to New Shadow School. Hopefully I did my research right, but it also appears to actually be one of the oldest schools in Kenjutsu in Japan. That's real life, not in-game. Jubei's story is one of revenge. His village was destroyed by Nobunaga's army, and quickly comes to learn that his mother, who he'd never met before, is a demon, giving him the ability to turn into an Onimusha, which I guess they never explained, but Onimusha actually translates to demon warrior. It's in this form that Jubei can unleash stronger attacks with his sword and also lobby out a bunch of beams for a short amount of time before turning back into his human form. Throughout Jubei's journey, you'll come across a multitude of weapons similar to Samanosuke in Warlords. There's even a Shao Kahn hammer, which is my favorite weapon in this game, and probably what I used most out of all of his weapons. Jubei's other elemental weapons consist of the Buraito, your thunder-based sword, the Hyojin Yari, your ice on a pole. I'm butchering these names, I am so sorry. The Senpumaru, your wind staff, where you can toss up enemies in a whirlwind Pidgeot style, and my favorite, as I mentioned, the Dokutsui. I know I butchered that one, and I apologize, everybody. Your Earth Hammer, or as I like to call it, Shao Kahn's hammer. Hold on, because we're about to bust out Google Translate to pronounce these names right now. Hold up, what do we have? Okay, our first one is the Buraito, right? I know that's not how that's pronounced.
Buraito.
I almost got it right. Buraito. Hold on. Buraito. Okay. All right, we got one so far, right? All right, next one. Let's go. The Hyojin Yari. All right, let's see. Here we go.
Kyoshinso, Kirashinso.
I'm gonna butcher that. I'm not gonna even try. Okay, this one I have to have right? The Senpumaru. Hold on, let's see.
Senpumaru.
Moving on, we have the last weapon, the oh man. Dokutsuri. Dokutsui. There's no R in there, Joe. Why are you pronouncing an R? See, it's separated two words. There you go. Dokutsui. There we go. All right. Hold on.
Dokutsui.
Okay. That was kind of close. I say that I got 3 out of the 4. The ice spear is hard. I'm not gonna hold you. The ice spear was kind of hard, and I know I just wasted a lot of time. Whether this ends up in the review or not somewhere, I'm sorry I just wasted your time. We'll make a chapter marker for this section. Let's get back to the review, y'all. Weapons, they're fun. You can basically bash enemies whack-a-mole style, lobby them upwards, or slam them on the floor and attack enemies on screen with the Earth's crop dust itself. There are a few projectile weapons, one of which I missed, but they're the bow with the regular and fire arrows, the shotgun, and there's a tri-barrel shotgun that I apparently missed. There's also one secret weapon, which if you find it, it's definitely worth going out of your way for. Something Warlords touch upon that Samurai's Destiny builds deeper into are the amount of party members Jubei is accompanied by. Eki Ankokuji, and again, we're gonna butcher these names and I apologize, the spear wielder and connoisseur of booze. I wish I had been able to get more time with him in my story, considering how many gifts I gave the guy. There was a moment early on where it seemed like I was going to get something profoundly deep in his backstory, but since I didn't give him enough gifts, or the right gifts, I should say, in my first run, I never found out what more there was to him other than that. Up next, we have Magoichi Saiga, who's definitely on the more calm, cool, and collected side, but he won't hesitate to shoot. He's into history, but don't give him every history book, which makes no sense in the gift-giving system, by the way. Magoichi's the second of the 2 characters you're first introduced to as potential teammates, and I really didn't get any proper backstory from him in my journey, so there wasn't much else I can tell you about him. Our third bandmate, Kotaro Fuma. He was one of the 2 who constantly showed up in the later half of my journey. A ninja of the Hojo clan from Pokemon's Kanto region. He rocks both kunai and shurikens respectively while also going into stealth mode. This allows him to confuse enemies into attacking a decoy and attack when invisible for a period of time. He alludes early on to be wary of Oyu, as she may not be the person she claims to be, And he's also suffered tragedies of his own, which if you keep building his friendship level high enough, you'll see the payout to that and what he's meaning in all these things he's kind of being very vague about. Our last but not least, and something I personally would presume is the canonical route to the friendship gifting system, is UwU. And that's it, UwU. We'll leave it at that, but I will say her Wonder Woman charge up sword wielding skills is among my favorite across the supporting cast of characters. She plays a pivotal role to the story, so I would say if there's a second person to gift towards a lot in the beginning of the game, and for, you know, the entirety as many times as you can, it would be her. The story's pacing overall, I will say, flows well if you're just going through playing the game straightforward and not being bothered with the gifting. What I will also mention is there is a mean halt if you're going to go out of the way to buy gifts for all your party members. I had a minor issue with it at first, but the further I got invested in gifting and grinding for golden orbs to level up all my weapons and armor, the more I felt rewarded in the second half of the game, where you're pretty much locked out of the hub world. And that's why I mentioned earlier, if you're gonna go for the gifts from the gift shop, just grind and buy everything as soon as you see it. When that thing replenishes, just go. So this is the only minor spoiler for like 10 seconds, and like it's barely a spoiler. It's a side quest thing for anybody who cares. 10 seconds, you can skip over, whatever. But in the first half of the game, the shop refreshes once you come back after completing each chapter. But I believe it's only if you bought most of the items in the shop during the previous period you were in town. The only thing I noticed is there's at least one character that I came across in my playthrough that asks you for a specific item, which the cantaloupe that he's asking for is only obtained by gifting a particular character in your party. So I had completed that chapter and then I got the cantaloupe and he wasn't there the next chapter. So I was screwed out of being able to gift them, but hey, I had a cantaloupe that I could give to a party member, I guess. I don't know. Overall, going through the game, I think the only trouble I had aside from the final boss was, quite frankly, the greatest villain in gaming history to ever exist outside of Kefka in Final Fantasy VI, and that's the greatest swordsman of all demons, Gogodantis. His final fight was a pain only because your boy apparently can't read and didn't use one of the specific items that I had, and instead I just brute forced my way into winning on the second attempt. Onimusha 2 Samurai's Destiny takes what Warlords started and expands upon it in just over a year's time. This wasn't out of the norm for that period of game releases, but between introducing a brand new protagonist with barely any mention of Samanosuke and an all-new supporting cast was a bold choice to make, and I personally feel it was successful when learning about how these characters are all tied to the ultimate bad guy who's barely around other than in name, Nobunaga. I do feel slighted by not having Samanosuke around, especially in how the first game ended, but I can only hope that's remedied in the third game, which, since I own a PS2 copy of, I may need to dabble in sooner than later, because I don't know if I can wait another 5 years for a remaster for the third game. I'm still hurt by that, okay? But what I will say is I hold out hope that it's sooner than later, only because if 2 sells enough, and with the Way of the Sword coming out in 2026, there's a good chance that we get 3 and 4, and hell, maybe even the fighting game, and also, wasn't there a tactical game on the GBA? Let's throw that on the NSO. Why not? Let's get crazy with it. It's an Onimusha resurgence, right? Let's Capcom, hear me out, man. I'm just saying, if you release all these games, you might create a new fan base. Having these remasters drop is both a great way to promote the new Onimusha game drop, and also those who don't own a PS2 or don't want to spend the money to get an older console and a copy. Especially in today's retro market, to just play the game on a modern day platforms is so much more accessible. And given the increase of everything going on in the world, you know, it may still be the cheaper option at the end of the day. Yes, there's alternate methods, but I'll let the comment section take care of that. I'm not going to be bothered with it. I recommend picking up Onimusha 2 for not only those who wanted more from the first game, but for those looking to jump in for a shorter action-based game with supernatural elements to it. I know a lot of people make reference to Resident Evil, but it's only survival horror in the fact that there's fixed camera angles, and that the game stemmed from the 1.5 model that was built. This is very much its own game, utilizing mechanics that worked in the early 2000s because of certain technical limitations that eventually evolved in the second half of the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube era lifecycle. The game does a great job of filling in the blanks of the first game early on, so you don't necessarily need to jump into the first game before playing this one because of its departure in the cast of characters. But if you catch it on a sale, then why the hell not? I recommend it. They're both amazing titles to have in anyone's library. And if you've made it this far to the end of the review, I just want to thank everybody again. We got the credits scrolling around and everything. Did I do that at the right side? Yeah, I did it at the right side. All right. Anyway, thank you again. I apologize for being super late on this review because this was supposed to come out closer to the launch period. I had a bunch of technical difficulties. I recorded this. This is now the third time recording this review, and I figured out what was going on as to why the audio was not coming through, and it was a very rookie move on my end, and apologies are all I can offer. But with that said, there's going to be more reviews on the channel as well, so if you want to see any more, I'm gonna leave the Dragon Quest one that was done a few months back for when I end up finishing first. I think it's gonna end up being Lunar, honestly, because I'm closer to finishing that game over Breath of Fire 4. I still am I'm probably like halfway through that game, I want to say right now, which I stream all these games. It's the only time I really truly have to play games if I'm not doing either cosplaying or working out or, you know, IRL work stuff, right? This is a hobby that I would love to make, you know, something more of down the road if I put a little bit more effort into it, I realize, you know. So with that said, thank you so much. I will see you all next time. Take care, love y'all, and remember, fight for your dreams, and your dreams will fight for you.